for this next segment, I have a pretty cool gift. My friend, Dr. Uma Naidu. She is, I'm going to read this. She's a nutritional psychiatrist, a Harvard-trained psychiatrist that focuses on the impact of food and mental and emotional health. Okay. She founded and directed the first hospital-based nutritional psychiatry service in the U.S. She's a director of nutritional and lifestyle psychiatry at at Massachusetts General Hospital, a very famous hospital. And she's also on the faculty at Harvard Medical School. Here's her expertise. Her expertise is the mechanics of how what we eat impacts our physical and psychological health, and really our emotional health, if I get really granular about it. But for the sake of your souls, we didn't get super nerdy. We didn't go down all the mechanistic conversation, like just super nerdy. Here's what we talk about. What should you actually eat? Are you sick of it? You gotta be raw vegan. I told her during the interview, I was scrolling the other day and someone was like, oatmeal will kill you. Oh my gosh. You gotta eat all meat and be like, what are we doing? As my friend Dr. Norton says, we step over $100 bills to pick up nickels when it comes to nutrition. And so I've had several guests on the show. She is yet another great guest. Talk about what are we supposed to eat? She's got a brand new book out, Calm Your Mind with Food. Calm Your Mind with Food. And it's a discussion of the connection between anxiety and what we eat. I mentioned it briefly in my book, this connection between what we eat and how our body responds. So much here. So in the space of a call, Dr. Naidu and I unpack some things. Well, actually, she unpacks it. I ask her some questions, and she just runs with it because she's brilliant. So after Thanksgiving and Christmas, where if you're like me, you got off the rails, Dr. Naidu's here to help, taking you into the new season. I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, you're going to go, that's really? And the answer is yes. We've made things way, way, way too complicated. Here's my conversation with Dr. Uma Naidu. It's good to talk to you again. Man, I've done 1 million Instagram lives, and I've not had the feedback that I got from our last conversation. So I'm glad that you are able to join me on the show. That's so fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You have a great audience, and clearly there's some stuff that we talk about, which is awesome.
Oh, I don't know anybody who has not just thrown their hands up and said, I quit. When it comes to, I was scrolling the other night on Instagram, which I'm not supposed to do, but I was, and I ran across one goofball saying oatmeal will be the death of you. It's the worst thing you can put in your body. Somebody else saying that protein is overrated. You shouldn't have so much protein. Somebody else say, it's just madness. And when you
actually, it is madness.
So I feel, let me say it like this. I feel one of the greatest honors of my life is I have friends like you in spaces that live in this data. And I'm able to pick up a phone and say, hey, walk me through this real quick. But 99.999% of the U.S. population doesn't have access to people like you. Right? And so what happened? What happened with our food conversation that got so sideways that there's people on one side saying eggs are bad, and somebody over here saying if you eat meat, you're going to all be dead, and then somebody else saying, you know, oatmeal will kill you, and then somebody else saying, no, you got to eat protein or your body doesn't work right. What are you, what are we supposed to do? How did this happen?
Well, I think it happened because, well, there's definitely been an explosion, I'm sure you'll agree, with everything that went online over COVID, right? And prior to that, we were already a mixed nation, eat this, not that, seeing things as just categories of food versus what about just moving from the standard American diet called SAD for a reason to just a whole foods diet as best we can. It's not perfect, but as many whole foods. I also feel like people make these statements to enhance their followers and to enhance engagement and all this trickery, which, hey, you know what? You want to build your Instagram following, you go do you. But provide the public with well-vetted information. For example, oatmeal. Oatmeal can be complicated, John, because sometimes the prepackaged oatmeal can be loaded with lots of sugar and stuff that we don't really need. A version of oatmeal can be healthier and a good grain for you to eat. But should you be eating it every single day? Maybe not, because continuous glucose monitoring studies and research has shown that it does actually hit your metabolic health. It's not always the healthiest food in the way that it's claimed to be and the way it's marketed. Now, does that mean it's evil? No. That means have your oatmeal, make it in a healthy way, add in a good source of milk or whatever you're doing. Be mindful of your toppings and don't have it for every single day. Mix it up with chia pudding and eggs and all sorts of things. But the conversation has gotten very toxic. And I find it, I'm often dealing with the aftermath of people coming and saying, well, I was told I should never eat a bean. And someone else saying, I have to go plant-based because I'm hearing if I eat meat, it's going to kill me. So it's a lot of confusion out there, and hard to sort through.
You just said it. Sorry for interrupting. You just said it. Something that I want everyone to hear, and I've become close friends with several folks in the nutritional space who have degrees. They have pedigree here, and they know what they're talking about. And behind closed doors, when I ask them, like, "Hey, why do you keep going after people?" It's what you just said, because they end up in the hospital. They end up with completely deranged metabolic systems. They end up with completely deranged. I don't want to get too nerdy, but their bodies start falling apart, and they're just trying to do the best thing that somebody told them. And so, kudos to you for saying, "Whoa! Here's actual data. Here is and you're not just somebody. You're not just a nerd like me who sits in a room and writes books. You also see patients. You also build programs that have efficacy to them. Like, you're not just an influencer trying to get a following. It sounds like you are at the end receiving line in a hospital with these folks, and you're tired of seeing hurting people. And so if we can move upstream, so I'm just so grateful.
Thank you.
It all lands on this. You're going to save us all right now, okay? And I know I don't give any spoilers in your book. I want everyone to pick up Calm Your Mind with Food. So picture in your mind a single mom with 3 kids, and she's just been buying a bag of off-brand Cheerios, and that's what her kids have for breakfast, and she gives them skim milk because she heard that full-fat milk's bad for them. Or the over-the-road trucker who puts on 5 or 10 pounds every year, who just wants to be a little more present father, who's got a little more energy, wants to slowly begin to give his kids a picture. What would you just outline as big picture? What should they eat?
Some basic principles.
Some basic principles.
Go towards actually have 6 pillars of nutritional psychiatry, which I outlined in my first book. And some of the pillars are the following. Eat the whole food and skip the processed version of it. So what do I mean by that? Eat an orange, skip the store-bought orange juice, which has all the fiber removed and added sugars, which you don't need. But if you eat the orange, it has all the micronutrients you need. It is fresh, delicious, and has vitamins as well. The more times we can keep that principle in mind, the better. You can have frozen broccoli. You can get broccoli in the fresh produce section, or cauliflower, or you can have the highly processed version that's added to a nugget, or some kind of trickery that the food company has come up with to sell that broccoli to you as a healthy product. Unfortunately, even if the broccoli is okay, it's loaded with a lot of stuff that your body doesn't need. And what I'm referring to are the colorants, the dyes, the food stabilizers, etc., that you don't need. And that's what goes into processed foods. And research has shown in animals that when we consume things like thickeners called CMC, carboxymethyl cellulose, from foods that are thickened with it, for example, that it is damaging and disruptive to the gut microbiome in animal studies, and in fact leads to lower production of short-chain fatty acids, something that we want our gut microbes to be helping us produce. That's healthy for us, that fends off inflammation and other discomfort in the gut. So we know this, and what we want to be doing is just going as much as possible for whole foods when we can. Difficult to avoid processed food, but what you choose makes a difference. Another thing is lean into the the leafy greens, because wherever you can get your B vitamins, think brain B vitamins, because many of the B vitamins, if not all of them, are involved in brain health. Vitamin B12 from different animal proteins or nutritional yeast, vitamin B9 from leafy greens, folate. Low folate is associated with the low mood, so that's a good one for you. So I say add in those leafy greens and have your nutritional psychiatry plate mostly loaded with colorful vegetables for the fiber, the micronutrients that you're going to get, and all the things that your body needs. Then choose your clean protein. You may want a nice piece of beef. You may want a piece of tofu, whatever your dietary preference is. Make sure it's the best version that you can get that's accessible to you. Then add in your healthy fats and a smaller portion of, say, a whole grain like quinoa or whatever it is that you prefer. So in other words, you don't have a pile of quinoa, you have a small serving of it, but you really filling your plate with satiating vegetables, which are complex. They are carbohydrate, but complex. They break down more slowly. This is a simple thing. If we think about it, we can adjust in every single plate that we eat or what we cook. So it's going back to those principles, and then add in spices and herbs because they're rich in antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. They're pretty much calorie-free. They're salt-free and sugar-free if you just buy a spice, from the supermarket, and you can flavor up your food to make whatever you're eating super delicious. So those are just some jumping off points for people to try. And don't forget water. Hydration is extremely important, and dehydration worsens depression and makes people anxious.
So tell me if I'm smiling because I had a buddy about a decade ago. He's since passed away, but about a decade ago, he said, the arc of nutrition and physiology, exercise, is heading towards something that is going to be very challenging to package and sell. And I said, what do you mean by that? And it continues, like, how do you get in great physical shape? Well, walk most of the time, or do some zone 2 and have a sprint day and lift weights several times a week. Ta-da! And as my buddy Dr. Norton says, people often trip over $100 bills to pick up nickels. We want it to be so complex. And similarly, we have so many fad diets and so much this and so much this and so much this. And what you're saying is, hey, eat whole real foods the way nature invented them, right? And make sure you get enough fiber and good vegetables, and make sure you get good proteins and have a little fun along the way. It can't be that easy, but just is it?
So I think this is where it gets hard. It gets hard with the different type of messaging that's out there. Like you mentioned, the oatmeal issue.
Yeah.
It also gets difficult because I fundamentally do believe people know what healthier foods are, but it's inconvenient. They're often stressed and in a rush to get food on the table, make sure that the family is fed, make sure that, that there are choices that everyone likes. And I think, unfortunately, we get, we start to eat processed food and our brain gets tricked into liking it because the processed foods are engineered to be hyperpalatable, to tap into our cravings. If you've ever ordered French fries at a fast food drive-through, you often upsize, and when you upsize, you eat the whole bag, and then the next day you're like, maybe I want some more. You're a healthy guy. Maybe that's not happened to you, but it happens to a lot of people in America.
I would have French fries every day. Yes, multiple times. They're so good.
And here's the thing: they are delicious, but in a fast food restaurant, they actually often have added sugar that you don't taste, but they've been engineered to be so tasty and yummy that we want more, and our brain then wants it again. So these are the things that we're working against. And what I'm saying is that it's much more nuanced than what I'm sharing right now. And the nuances are in the book. What are the different spices you want to incorporate for anxiety? What are the different herbs that are possible? Which teas are best? But for basic principles, it's not that it's so easy. It's more that we've almost lost our way, and people have this messaging which gives them more confusing information. And when they have just a plate of food in front of them, they think that it can't be this, And I feel like part of it is also making that habit change because we often choose foods out of convenience and it's harder to make those home cooked meals and do the shopping and prepare because we're all so busy. But research has even shown that, when we prepare our meals at home and we eat more meals at home, we lose weight and we consume fewer calories. So this is helpful information for us to know.
Yeah, that's incredible. Well, thank you so much for joining us all the way from, are you in Boston now?
I'm actually in New York today because I had an event here. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for making time for us and for our audience. And we will link to your book. And I wish you the absolute best. Just some quick advice to you during your book launch week. Make sure you eat lots of leafy green vegetables and clean. I'm just kidding. Hey, I'm really, really grateful for you. You're so generous with your time. But I wish you the absolute best. Sell 1 million copies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.